Good morning, afternoon, and evening, Founders District leaders. Thanks for taking the time today to hear from our Region 2 advisor regarding ideas for infusing fun and high energy into club meetings. Christine began her Toastmaster journey in 2003 and has served in various Founders District leadership roles, including Founders District Director, prior to broadening her service as Region Advisor. I feel that we are extremely fortunate to have such a fabulous mentor, trainer, and supporter. Please welcome Christine Brady, Region 2 Advisor, as she demonstrates how to put the fun in Functionary. Christine.
Thank you, Madam District Director. And I am so excited to be here to talk about how to put the fun in Functionary. When Jean proposed this topic for this workshop, I immediately knew it needed to be interactive. So at any time, if you have an idea to contribute, you'll just put your hand up or just let us know that you want to say something and we'll go ahead and hear from you. I also, whatever ideas that you are going to share, I will ask you to make sure that you put them in the chat because I have a whole handout of ideas that we're going to be distributing later. What I want to do is include all of the ideas that we talk about today in this meeting in the handout. So I can only do that if you put them into the chat. I am so excited to be here talking about this. And, just was it a week ago, Natalie? You sent out an email to all of the clubs in your division, and it was just some recommendations on how to make things like table topics fun. But she did something that I thought was so fun, where she actually asked ChatGPT. And I thought, well, I know how to put the fun in Functionary, but I'm going to see what ChatGPT has to say about it. And Natalie, I'm glad that you inspired that idea in me because ChatGPT gave me ideas that I'd never heard before. And I've talked to Toastmasters from all over the world about how they do things in their meeting. And so I think that this is going to help all of us in Founders District infuse some fresh excitement into our club meetings. So, how many of you are like, oh, the fun and Functionary? What are we going to talk about? Sometimes, right? You're just like, what fresh idea are you going to have, Christine Brady? Well, I actually expanded this a little bit because we want to think about the meeting as a whole, right? So it's not just the functionaries. And I don't want to say just the functionary. That seems rude to the functionaries. The functionary roles are very important, but it isn't something that we should be relying on just the functionaries to do. Okay. We need to be building that excitement before the meeting. So let me ask this question and anybody can yell it out. If you're a VPE in your club, what is something that you do to build excitement for your meeting before the meeting?
I send the speaker topics in advance.
Yes. Okay. Sending the speaker topics in advance, right? You want people to get a little taste of what the meeting's going to be about. Okay. Anything else?
I'm VPR for a club in Canada and I'm doing their PR. So each week, like after the meeting's finished, I'll create the video for next week and that brings the fun that way.
Yes, I like that. I like including a video. All right. So one thing that I like to do, this is a Christine Brady, and this goes along kind a little bit of what Natalie's saying. If I know what that topic is or the theme of the meeting, I will go on YouTube and I will think, oh, there has to be a funny video, maybe a movie clip, or the best is if it's a Saturday Night Live skit, or maybe a song, something that is related to the topic. And when I create my email out to the club, I'll say, oh, in order to get ready, take a look at this YouTube video and get your dancing shoes on or whatever it's related to. It's really, that can be a fun way. And then people have something to kind of chat about when they come into the meeting. So they're already creating that excitement. But here's what ChatGPT said about creating some excitement prior to the meeting by the VPE. Make sure that you use an exciting subject line in your email, right? So they had get ready to shine at Thursday's meeting or prepare for a fun-filled adventure in speaking. Those are pretty generic, but you could base a fun subject line based on your theme. Also, similar to what Julie said, preview the meeting highlights, share an overview of what to expect, mention that theme, the word of the day, I like getting the word of the day out there ahead of time. And if there's any special activities planned, and you could add a teaser about a mystery speaker or a special event, that can also just pique some interest. Another thing, and this is related to maybe a little bit of what Natalie's talking about, is to share some sneak peeks on social media, right? So you can highlight the speakers and the roles, you can post that lineup, you can do a theme reveal with visuals. So you can create a fun graphic or an image that reveals the meeting's theme. I also like creating a countdown with some daily reminders. So I'm in a club that, it feels like it's pulling teeth to get people to sign up for roles, right? I almost need to send a daily email, but I hesitate to be like, hey, can you guys sign up for a role? We're 4 days away. Can you sign up for a role? We're only 2 days away. Can you please sign up for a role? We need to be thinking about having a fun countdown. So a reminder with there's just 3 days to go. And then each time that you send that reminder, just making sure you are highlighting a different aspect of the meeting. I also like this idea. How about the VPE send out a daily challenge or a prompt where you share a quick question like, what's your favorite motivational quote? Or this is the word of the day. Try using that word in a sentence so that you can encourage the members to be interacting either with each other or just with the VPE via email. The thing I like about that is if they respond back to you, that means that they read your email, right? Because sometimes we send these emails out into the cloud and we don't know where they go and if anyone even saw them. You could also introduce the word of the day with a twist. So you can have the weekly word challenge where you share the word of the day in advance and challenge members to use it in their daily lives, and then ask them to share examples or stories of using the word, which could create a sense of fun or learning during your meeting. So that's like having homework, right? You could also do a video explanation that you post on your social media. Record a quick video explaining the word of the day and its use, and then add tips for how to incorporate it creatively into your speeches. I thought that one sounded fun because the whole point of having the word of the day is that you start to incorporate this word into your everyday vocabulary, right? It's one thing to just challenge yourself to use it in the meeting, but let's actually learn the word and use it. You can also host a pre-meeting mini contest where you can have people guess the theme. So you can send out clues about the meeting and the theme, and you can have the members guess based on some hints. And you can reward the first correct answer with a small shout out or some kind of prize during the meeting. And you can also create a quick poll or a survey and ask members what they're most excited about when it comes to the meeting. So it could be a certain speaker or a topic or an activity, or you can say, they can say what they want to achieve at the meeting. And that can just foster some engagement and some anticipation. Also, it's encouraged that you send out some personal invitations for your key participants. So, especially your first time role takers, the VPE can send a personalized message to them and just highlight how much the group is looking forward to their contribution and then offering any support that they might need. And then send out some special guest invitations. Invite a seasoned Toastmaster from another club or a club mentor to attend just to share some expertise. And you can announce this in advance as a unique opportunity for the members. I also liked you can have some challenges that you set in your emails as VPE. So you can challenge your members to come prepared to use as few filler words as possible or to work on vocal variety. And you can recognize members who meet that challenge at the meeting. Or you can post a question of the week. You can post that question in the club's group chat or via email that relates to that meeting theme or self-improvement, asking members to reflect or share responses at the start of the meeting. I also like this idea of creating a pre-meeting ritual. So this is something that the VPE would do, where they share a quick speaking tip or inspirational message that ties into the meeting theme. And members can look forward to that regular warm-up, but also, again, having that mini warm-up challenge that gets announced at the beginning of the meeting, where you encourage members to share one thing they're working on for self-improvement, or maybe a quick goal for the meeting in the chat. What I like about all of those is they're touching on all of the different ways that we are learning in the meeting. And, not every lesson is going to be some drudgery, right? It should be fun. So thinking about like, what are we working on? Well, Christine Brady's going to work on not saying so many times because she loves to say the word so. And if I say it like that, of course, all of my club members that see me every week, hearing that report about the number of so's, they're going to laugh about it because of course, of course you're working on that, Christine. You've been working on that for years. So those were some ideas for how the VPE can help drive excitement for the meeting prior to it starting. Let's see. I am looking in the chat. I'm loving some of these. Oh, Leilani says plan for a month in advance and for all those roles assigned to people and confirm it with them as the meeting day approaches. Yes, that is so important. And let's see. Okay. Did that spark any idea? Did anyone say, ooh, you know what? I think that would be, here's another one. You can just unmute. No? Okay. Oh yeah, Natalie Thomas is bringing up the backwards meetings. They are fun. They are definitely fun. Oh, Elaine says assign each member the role of awe counter for another member. That's a good one where you you have an awe counter partner and you hold each other accountable. That would be really good because then one person is just focused on one person. Yes. And I think that that encourages the active listening skills too. So you're working on not just the awe counters, but also that we're listening very carefully. All right, let's talk about the sergeant at arms. So we know the sergeant at arms sets the tone for the meeting, right? The way that they set it up. That creative opening can really energize the room and engage members right from the start. Does anyone have any examples before I give my examples about how the sergeant at arms can really contribute to getting that tone just right?
I think one thing the sergeant at arms can do is bring that high energy, start that meeting off on a high note. Because if they're just like, "Hi everybody, welcome," it's just kind of a downer. And then I know one thing that our pastime pursuit sergeant at arms does is tries to vary how he introduces the president every time. So, just keeping people on their toes and keeping it fresh and exciting.
I like that. Varying how we do those introductions right at the start. I love it. Anyone else have any fun things? All right, let's get into this big list. It's actually quite the list from ChatGPT here. Of course, if you have a theme for the meeting, the sergeant at arms can do a short greeting related to that theme or even to the season or holiday that is happening in the moment. So of course, welcome to our harvest gathering for fall, cheers to new beginnings for the new year. They can also open with a line from a popular film or book that ties into the meeting's theme. Like a fantasy themed meeting, you could say, welcome travelers to an adventure in communication. That would be fun. You can think about that. Engage the audience with a quick icebreaker. Just having a one-word check-in. The sergeant at arms can do a one-word check-in and ask everyone to share one word that describes how they're feeling or something they're looking forward to in the meeting. And of course, this would be as time allows on your agenda. Or just a quick icebreaker where people can raise their hand. You can ask a fun, relevant question like, who's here to overcome their fear of public speaking? I'm here. Or who loves giving impromptu speeches? I do. And that can just break the ice and loosen the crowd up a little bit. The sergeant at arms can also open with a fun fact or a quote. So they can share an interesting fact about communication, about language, or public speaking to spark curiosity. They can also start off with a motivational quote. You can talk about growth, about courage or success that aligns with the Toastmaster spirit or the Toastmaster's promise that we talked about earlier today. The sergeant at arms can also do a group warm-up exercise. I've never seen this in a club, but I'm excited to implement this in my own club. Do a breathing or vocal exercise. Lead a simple breathing or vocal warm-up to help members relax and focus. And this can be just a couple of deep breaths, or you could do a quick tongue twister. I don't know how quick tongue twisters are, because I know for me, my tongue gets all twisted up. But that can also break the ice a little bit. Everyone starts laughing because it's just silliness, but it will be a good vocal warm up. Or the sergeant at arms can lead a gesture exercise, like try a quick activity like a power pose to boost confidence and energy before the meeting begins. So if you're all in person, the sergeant at arms can say, let's all hit our favorite power pose, and everybody can stand up and hit whatever pose they feel powerful in. That makes sure that they're engaged, they're listening, and then everyone's ready to sit down and the president comes up and starts the meeting. I think those sound really good. Now, they can also add a touch of humor to their introduction. So, Julie, I think you mentioned people just having that varied introduction for the president. What about beginning with a humorous or exaggerated introduction? Something like, as your sergeant at arms, I hold the keys to the kingdom, or at least to the timing lights. That would be a cute little thing. So you give the sergeant at arms the opportunity to inject some humor into their introduction. Also, if you don't normally do a toast, encourage the sergeant at arms once in a while to propose a toast, with imaginary glass or coffee cup, whatever you have in your hand, to personal growth, improvement, or overcoming fears. Or they could create a Toastmasters pledge where they create, everyone commits to supporting each other and enjoying the meeting or setting a welcoming, inclusive tone, something like that. The sergeant at arms can also challenge the group with a goal for the meeting. So they could challenge the members to try something specific, like minimizing filler words or experimenting with vocal variety, or ask members to focus on encouraging each other and providing one positive comment for each speaker or role taker. They can also encourage reflection. Invite members to think about one goal they have for the meeting or one thing they've improved on recently, or briefly mention a highlight from the last meeting or a collective goal everyone is working on. And that would create some continuity and momentum. So think about if Natalie and her club, as the VPPR, sends out a recap of last week's meeting. When the sergeant at arms starts the meeting, the sergeant at arms has watched the video and can say, oh, guess what? This was a highlight from that video. Did you see the video that Natalie? And then they can do a quick little one sentence synopsis of it and then start that meeting off. So then the sergeant at arms is supporting Natalie's effort. So Natalie doesn't feel like it's just going out into the cloud and nothing's happening. Did any of those ideas spark something additional that wasn't mentioned? And you can yell it out or put it in the chat. Ooh, I love Natalie saying when there's a toast, people can also get credit for that, right? And so they can definitely make sure that they just have an evaluator for that project. I love that. Ooh, April says the ESL club does tongue twisters. That's a great way to practice another language, just doing tongue twisters in that language, of course. Yep, and the power pose, striking that pose, or gestures practice. I like that. Gestures practice is great because so many times we're just like, I'm just going to do this with my hands, right? And let's not, or do the little T-Rex arms. All right. So then what happens next at the meeting? The president's going to open the meeting, right? So what are some creative ways you've seen for the president to open the meeting? Oh, a member's moment role. Natalie, tell us about that.
So this was 2 minutes where people could just share something that was important to them as Toastmasters members. And this was my club in South Africa. And it just gave that member that chance just to say what's making them feel good about being a Toastmaster. And I think that's something that I'm going to try and implement within Mudbridge, just because I think it gives that, it's a short speaking role, but it's a time where you can be proud of what you're accomplishing as a Toastmaster. So
I
I
like
think
that. Yeah,
I do like that role.
I like that because it also, like you said, it creates that additional speaking opportunity for somebody who may not have a speaking role at that particular meeting. But I think it also is a reminder to all of the members that each of us is working on something different. And that anytime you hear from me, it could be something different that I'm working on, right? So if you only hear from me once every 6 months, like today it could be this, and 6 months from now it could be something else. And so I love that idea. Anything else with the president opening the meeting? No? Okay. Oh, let's see. High notes, yes, saying one thing that they appreciate about the person to their right or to their left. Ooh, I like that. Painting the picture for where they're going as the club, yes. Absolutely. High energy, welcoming guests and members like to ask a quick question. Yes. I like Leilani saying that they alternate between presenting educational things. Linda saying a message on leadership. Yes, I like that too. Capture some of those into a postable graphic spotlighting the member. Yes. Like that could be the member of the week maybe for the meeting, or the member of the meeting, member of the, yeah, however often your club meets. If it's once a month, member of the month. Yes, yes, yes. I see that. There's some private chats coming into me, so I'm just acknowledging those. Okay, so let's talk about what I learned from ChatGPT. So one is this is goes right along with what Linda said, to begin with a powerful quote about communication or leadership. But you can go a little bit further and ask members how the quote resonates with them or how it connects to their Toastmasters journey. This doesn't necessarily mean that you always have to hear from people. You can just ask people, like, think about how that resonates with you. If you're meeting online, you could certainly tell people to post it in the chat, because you may not have time in a live meeting to have everybody go around the table and say something, because, your agenda is probably already full. So you may not have time to have everyone share out loud, but definitely give them the opportunity to take it a step further and think about how it resonates. We talked about a member spotlight. This one's a little bit different though. This is to highlight a member's recent achievement or contribution. So that's more about recognition instead of asking the member to speak on what maybe is important to them or what they're working on. We have the interactive poll again. So maybe if the sergeant at arms didn't do it, the president can use just an informal poll, raise of hands, to ask members, what aspect of the meeting they're looking forward to or what they hope to gain from the meeting. There could be a storytelling moment, share a personal story or anecdote related to public speaking or leadership, and encourage members to reflect on how they faced similar challenges. So if Linda gives the quote, she could share a small, I picked this quote because, share a small story about it. And then in the reflection, she could say, does that resonate with any of you? Think about how that would resonate with you. There can be that educational moment. Somebody mentioned this, where you conduct a brief workshop on a specific speaking tip or technique, such as using body language effectively or managing your stage fright. Again, you can, if the sergeant at arms doesn't do it, you can have that fun factor trivia about the meeting theme. You can have a visualization exercise. So if you have your sergeant at arms start off with those power poses, the president can actually lead a short visualization exercise where members close their eyes and envision their goals for public speaking, and ask them to take a moment to reflect on what they want to achieve in the meeting. I think that's important. And I'm going to share something with you that's not related to Toastmasters. So a lot of you know that I row at an indoor rowing studio. That's my exercise. I do it to work all the anxiety out of my system. Try to do that every morning. One of the coaches, as we're going through our warm up before we really start, like before she tries to kill us, we just do a light row, easy. And she always says, I want you to reflect on what your intention is for this workout. And I'm like, for me, I'm always like, we need to get moving so I can get all this anxiety out, right? But that's not necessarily what she's asking for. She wants us, why did you get up in the morning? Like, why did I let my alarm go off at 5:30? I could have slept in until 7:45. So that's the thing. It's the same thing. Set that visualization for the meeting. What is your intention for your meeting today? Like, there is a reason that you came here. Your reason could be, it just sounds like a good time. I want to have fun. But it could also be, I have a huge presentation at work in 3 days and I want to make sure I'm as prepared as possible. So asking people to visualize what that looks like and that they're successful in it. You could pose a question of the day as the president. Something like, what does confidence mean to you? And you can invite one or two members to just share their thoughts. Make sure that they understand this is not table topics. So you want to reduce the time, give them 30 seconds, right? 30 seconds. You can have a creative introduction. So instead of a standard opening, share a humorous or unexpected personal introduction that reflects your personality and sets a lighthearted tone. One thing I think is fun is if you're president, you can ask for a fun introduction for the Toastmaster of the day. So if the theme is Fall Festival, you can ask the Toastmaster to send, you should have an introduction for your Toastmaster. So ask them to send the introduction and say, hey, when you send your introduction, can you tell me what your favorite pie is at Thanksgiving? And then you would just weave in their answer into their introduction. Right. And it just creates that moment where instead of it just being that formal introduction where you're like, I'm introducing Linda Robinson. She's very accomplished and she's my friend. Please help me welcome Linda. I could instead infuse some enthusiasm and say, apple pie is her favorite and she especially likes it hot with a piece of cheddar cheese. And then I chose correctly because I know you. And so that would just get people thinking like, oh, I didn't know that about Linda. I like apple pie with cheddar cheese. And then the last thing for the president, they could display a vision board. You could display a vision board with images or words that represent the club's goals and briefly explain that significance and invite members to contribute their own goals during the meeting. I love that. I think I've seen before where clubs might get together as an activity and create their own vision boards, but I love the idea of the president creating vision board for the club meeting, especially if you were in the last session where we were talking about the Toastmasters promise. We're talking about everybody having a ticket on the same train, going the same direction. Same thing, right? That vision board can make sure that everybody has a ticket on the same train and we're all going to go the same direction all together. Did those ideas spark anything for anyone here? Any additionals?
I'm saving the chat.
Yes. Okay. All right. Let's talk about the Toastmaster. So some of these we've talked about. So when it comes to the theme of the meeting, of course, making sure that you're incorporating some maybe quotes or colors or metaphors that fit the theme. They could start with a famous quote and ask speaker to use a line or word from the quote during their speech. That would be incredibly advanced and nerve-wracking and super fun. I would love that because I'm contrary and I would say I used the word the 60 times in my speech and that was in the quote. That's not the intention of the of the exercise, but I'm not always good at incorporating the word of the day. They can also think about structuring the meeting like a film premiere with each speaker being the star of a feature film. So you can incorporate that into your introduction for each of the speakers. Before each speaker, they can also do a rapid fire Q&A. So you could ask this fun, fast question to keep the energy high. So for example, as they're coming up to the lectern, you might say, what's your favorite travel destination? And they have to yell it out. Or what's one thing on your bucket list? And they just have to yell it out. And that's just as they're coming up to the lectern. You can also have some trivia breaks that are related to your theme, and you can let the audience guess answers to encourage the engagement. Sorry about that. Okay, wait, I'm going to cough again. I'm so sorry. Okay. Again, with this personalized speaker intro. So of course, you should have an introduction for every speaker. If you're the Toastmaster, when you ask for those introductions for your speaker, you can use the same question that I would have used. Hey, when you send me your intro, tell me about your favorite pie. Or, hey, when you send me your intro, tell me your favorite form of exercise, whatever is related to the theme, and then incorporate that into the introduction. You can also think about introducing each speaker by crafting a short fictional story about them based on the theme. So for example, you could say, today our speaker will take us on a journey to, and you could just make it up, like whatever's related to the theme, and then go into their introduction. You can give each speaker a fun title that reflects their personality or speech topic. So for example, Captain of Courage or Innovator Extraordinaire. You can use some visual backgrounds. So use a virtual or physical background that aligns with your theme. I know some clubs that meet online, I have clubs that meet exclusively online, will announce the theme and then say, come with your favorite background for that meeting so that everyone has a theme behind them. Again, with the word of the day, the Toastmaster can incorporate it into introductions, transitions, or comments, right? I think a lot of us already do that. And then maybe tease the audience by creating curiosity between speakers. So you can say, stay tuned because our next speaker has a surprising story to share about, and you can just create that little teaser. Also, if you end each speaker with a little recap, so wrap up by summarizing each speaker's key point with a twist, like imagining they've been awarded a unique achievement. Or encourage attendees to remember one new thing they learned or take a specific action before the next meeting. So that's like that little homework piece. All right, did anyone see anything else that, or think of anything else that wasn't mentioned? Wait a minute, Mary Berg said something interesting. Lying to an audience is teaching them to be better liars. I tend to not like tall tales for that reason. Lying to the audience. So, Mary, one thing I like to tell people, especially our new members, when they are struggling with table topics, because they may not know something on a topic, is in the Toastmasters meeting, we are practicing creating a speech with a beginning, middle, and an end, right? An introduction, a body, and conclusion. That doesn't always have to be telling the truth. So we're not telling people to lie, but we are asking them to practice speaking. So if they just make it up, that's fine. It doesn't have to be true in order for it to be a speech. I said that once in front of a group at a church that was thinking about starting a club. And I think that was the reason they didn't start a club because they thought I was telling them to lie. I wasn't. I was just telling them sometimes like you have to think on your feet, right? So the exercise, if you think about the point of the exercise is to practice speaking and getting over the hump of getting the words to come out of your mouth and think at the same time, it's not lying.
Natalie has a couple in chat. Her club in District 60 doesn't have a word of the day. They use a phrase of the day to really push their members.
It's good.
And
Oh yeah.
then Valonda comes and visits the club in D60, and she has a title, Phrase of the Day Queen, and always knocks it out of the park.
Woo! Love that. Oh, let's see. Natalie, talk about these roles, the Australian Club, the rant, and the current affair.
So an example of like the rant. So when I was a member of that club, I would always rant about the cost of the UK ferries. And that gave me a really good chance to practice my vocal variety. And the Australian audience were absolutely always in stitches. And a current affair would be something that's happening around you in that world. So it's looking at giving different types of speaking styles, but from a member perspective, opportunity for members to do shorter speaking roles, but it made the meeting so different. And I think the thing with the rant, the rants could be so funny, and that gave a lot of these meetings that fun that a lot of meetings don't have. So that's something I'm going to try and see if I can get in Woodbridge, just because I think, why not? We've always got something that you've knocked off about, that you want 2 minutes just to go, I wish people would recycle more or something like that.
You know, the thing about the rant, and a lot of members, and maybe a lot of you will relate to this, it's not the big things that drive me bananas, right? It's the fact that I can't get the end of this cord into my phone and I have to keep turning it around to see which way it's going to go because it just won't go in there, right? And that is, it's those little things that will drive me banana. And I can see where that would be very funny to people because it's like, Christine, calm down. Like, it's going to go in there. Be careful. It's fine. So I could see where that would be very, very funny. I could also see where maybe you need to have somebody demonstrate it with this little, like, this is what we're talking about. I don't want people going on a rant, especially right now with the political climate in the United States. We don't want to get into that piece. So keep it fun and fresh and easy and humorous, and not anything where anyone's going to get their tire slashed at the end of the meeting. That's all I'm saying. All right. Okay. Yes, April is mirroring what I just said. Okay, let's go on to the general evaluator. I'm going to move a little faster through some of these because I will be sending this handout out. So having a positive evaluation theme, so you can actually, the general evaluator can just set a theme or tone for the evaluation section and make sure that you're framing suggestions as growth opportunities. Using engaging transitions and introductions. So you can do some feedback bingo and you can challenge evaluators to use specific words or techniques like metaphors or humor in their feedback. And you can make it into an engaging bingo game where at the end you award a feedback champion. That would be fun. You can also spotlight some golden moments. So conclude each evaluation with a golden moment. So something that truly stood out in the speaker's performance. So you could ask your evaluators to do that. And if you were going to do that, I would make sure that you connected with your evaluators prior to the meeting so that they are prepared and ready to go. You could highlight some team roles and dynamics. So you could offer some mini awards at the end for role takers, like timekeeper extraordinaire or most inspiring evaluator. And you can also create a feedback spectrum. So you can chart some evaluations on a spectrum and then celebrate the diversity of feedback styles. So that would be something that you might do over a few month period where you, like, once everybody in the club has done an evaluation, you can say, wow, we really have all of these different styles of evaluation technique. But you might say, oh, we tend to go on the technical side, or oh, our club actually has more emotional kind of evaluations than technical. So you can kind of chart the different feelings that come across in evaluations. You can also do some interactive wrap up activities. So you can ask the audience to share one word that captures how they felt about the meeting or a single standout quality they noticed. And as the general evaluator, you could distribute some small notes of thanks to those who contributed, making them feel appreciated for completing their role. Anything else to add for general evaluator? Here's where it starts to get really fun. Let's talk about the timer. Now, that timer role might seem really straightforward, but you can definitely add some creativity to make it both fun and effective. Does anyone have anything that they've seen done in their clubs when it comes to the timer? Mary Berg is saying no. I'm surprised Mary Berg is saying no. Okay, well, let's talk about it. Of course, you can theme your timing. Oh, your notes, did you have one?
Yeah, sometimes with the timing, I challenge when I'm a timer, rarely, but when I do the role, I challenge everybody to either finish on green or yellow so that they can practice brevity. So they don't wait until the red and 30 seconds. it's a challenge. For example, for me as a Toastmasters, I always aim to finish on green, maximum yellow. But sometimes it's interesting to see people trying to do that.
I think that is an excellent point
Uh,
because
wha-
we always think about speaking all the way to the red, but you're right. Like we should have some brevity.
yeah, and sometimes one time I said I was doing the timer roll and I said I will donate to the club $1 for every person that finishes on green, and the people that finish on red should donate $1 or something like that. It was fun, and so I ended up paying like $10 to the club, and an additional $2 were paid from the other member. But it was fun. It was fun. Like obviously not mandatory, but I just said, hey, any of you finishing on green, I'm donating $1.
Yes, I like that. Let's see. April is calling the timer a name aligned with the theme. Yes, father time, mother time, prophet of time. I do like that. That's very good. There's a suggestion to maybe use some sound effects for timing. I know a lot of us have some trauma related to like the all counter bell, so maybe don't use bells, even though that is a suggestion in here. But you could think about maybe a chime as timing milestones for auditory emphasis. Mary's wearing her Wizard of Oz hat. I love it. For you could do some theme sounds. So for a sci-fi theme, you might use laser sounds. Then people have to remember. The problem is people have to remember what each sound means if it's green, yellow, or red. Maybe for a nature theme, you use some bird chirps. I know in a club I'm in, we just had a theme of birds. That would have been fun to have some bird chirps. But you have to make sure the sounds are subtle enough to not distract, but also obvious enough that the speaker will remember that that means that's a timing signal. Of course, we could be providing some visual variety. So for your online meeting, using virtual backgrounds to match the color you're signaling, although you want to be careful with that because I did that last holiday season in a club where I had some different like Christmas themed or backgrounds. And one of our speakers who was newer didn't realize, he just thought I was having some festive backgrounds. And so he kept talking and he kept going and going because he didn't realize that that was timing device. There was a lot of private chats going on, like how do we stop him? Should we just mute him? What do we do? I think we just let him keep going. He stopped eventually. All right. Uh, also incorporating some puns or rhymes. So you could have, this would be during the announcement of your role, introducing each timing color with a rhyme. Like when you see green, your time's just begun, but when it's red, you're almost done. That could be really fun, especially if you have members that are punny. I'm not punny, but there are people that are really good at puns and they can run with this idea. Another punny reminder is yellow means you're mellow, but get ready to go. And red means you're on fire, time to retire. Like that one's pretty good. I'm a sucker for a good dad joke. So if it's like a dad joke, I'm there. All right. And then you could also, there's no reason the timer can't give some feedback with some efficiency tips. So there could be a timekeeper's take. So at the end of the meeting, share one helpful tip on timing and pacing, like using pauses for impact or consolidating key points. That could go along with your notes with we're going to try to end on green. So the timekeeper could be reiterating that idea. And then there could be a best timed speech award. So award a small token to the speaker who timed their speech closest to the target, encouraging awareness of time limits. That goes right along with what your notes was saying. You could also give a more personalized timer report. I know a lot of times they'll stand up, all speakers qualified, and then sit down. Well, okay, let's do a little more. So when giving the report, you can use descriptors like masterfully timed or perfectly paced to add some flair. And of course, father time, like April was saying, would give some kind of masterful flair. You could also highlight pacing improvements. So if someone improved on timing from previous speeches, you could mention it to them to recognize their progress. That definitely happens in one of the meetings that I'm in with the same member with the backgrounds. Yeah. It's just become a thing that we talk about almost every time. Yes, most improved awards. Yes, I like that. All right, let's see. All right, let's talk about the ah counter rule. So one of the things, Mary has her Wizard of Oz hats on. I like that. One thing is definitely to, instead of highlighting for everybody in the club, you know, April had this many ahs and ums, Linda had this many, this person had this many. Instead of doing that, the ah counter can consolidate and say, overall as a club, we had 379 so's and 500 of them were Christine Brady, right? Or you could just consolidate and say our favorite filler word of the day was and, instead of doing those individual reports. I liked this one. You could create a soundboard or scoreboard or meter display where you track filler words with a creative meter, like on a whiteboard, paper, or a screen, and you gradually just move this marker up every time there's an or filler word. So the idea is to not fill it, right? We're trying not to fill it. So every time we do one, we're filling it. That's almost like if your notes is asking for a dime every time someone says it, the idea is to have that jar be empty, right? We don't want any money in there. You could have a little playful filler word leaderboard to track speakers' progress over time. So this would be noting those who have the fewest fillers or show improvement. In that case, you'd want some kind of tracker that every club member has access to as they are fulfilling the ah counter role. You can also do some creative description. So instead of just saying, you know, Christine Brady had 63 so's, you could say, Alice had a smooth ride with only 2 ums, but Sam took a detour. He had 5, right? So you can just have some creative ways to say that. You could also give some personalized awards, like the master of minimizing ums. So if a new member had quite a few ums the first time they spoke, you could say, you know, they've come a long way in these 3 months and they've only had 3. So making sure that you're uh, recognizing that. Could also have the champion of clarity. That would be a fun award to give somebody.
Yeah.
A lot of us have, I said, trauma from the sound cue, from the from the ah counter report. Um, the the recommendation here is to make sure it's friendly and not distracting. So if you have somebody that is using a tremendous amount of sums or so's and ums, to not be hitting that bell every, 3 times a second. I like this one though. You could use subtle hand signals like a small wave to indicate a filler word, and that would help speakers adjust mid-speech. We think it would. Sometimes that just creates the distraction and the speaker stops talking about what they were saying and they say, "Oh, I see somebody's waving back there," right? But you could find a way to do that. The ah counter can also make some of those challenges, right? So some of our other functionaries, they've created some challenges. The ah counter can do it too. We can have a filler-free challenge. So encouraging specific roles or speakers to aim for 0 filler words and celebrate if they succeed. And, lightly acknowledge the count if they don't succeed. And then some filler word substitutes. You could suggest fun alternatives like short pauses or transitional phrases and offer them as mini goals for speakers to try out. That would be a good one. You could have some fun aliases for filler words. So giving each filler word a themed name based on the meeting theme. So if you had a racing themed meeting, you might call ums pit stops. You maybe don't want to take any pit stops, right? Although I think if you're in a race, you definitely need to take those pit stops. Tracking specific words. So for a creative twist, you could track words like just or like or commonly overused words specific to your group. Or if you're in a club with Christine Brady, just continue to track those so's and then you will have a lot of them. Okay. Also, highlighting some golden moments. So if there's some perfect fluency happening with no filler words, give those people recognition as fluency stars or masters of flow. I like fluency star. I like that one. And of course, you can end with a recap and a tip. So when you're giving your report, you can share a quick tip on how to reduce filler words, like those pauses, how to work on your pacing. And again, highlighting overall progress within the group to reinforce that improvement is a collective journey. We're all working on this together. I like that one. Okay, and then for our grammarian, this will be the last. Yes,
for
yes,
the
yes.
yeah, for the counter, I have some experiences. One of my favorite roles, by the way. At the beginning of when I explained my role, I did it a couple of times in different clubs. I brought my laptop with me and a outside speaker, and I played a well-known contemporary song, something like Maroon 5 or something. So the music was playing, everybody was, enjoying the music. And then on a separate tab, I had a YouTube sound that was saying, and so I played for about 20 seconds. And every 5 seconds, I would press the sound. And I could see the reaction on everybody's face, like, what are you doing? And I said, you see, we should enjoy a beautiful speech. And every time we say, okay, etc., it takes away from that beauty. You wouldn't be able to listen to this beautiful song if it would be filled with the filler words. It had some impact. It was a lot of fun. Then the other thing that I did was actually throwing some pieces of paper just randomly on the ground, and everybody was like, what are you doing? And I said, yeah, I'm just littering. They were like, but I said, littering is not okay. Well, having filler words is just verbal littering. And they were like, oh man. So it was able, I was able to give a new perspective on the use of filler words and how we should avoid doing so. And yeah, it had quite an impact. Probably that it's applicable in a newer club or with multiple new members, where they would grasp the impact of the filler words.
Yes.
But it was fun.
I like that. I especially like the one with the music and you're playing that sound over it, right? Because you're right. Like, we should just be enjoying the message of the speech and not getting hung up on all these ums and ahs. I'm going to highlight just a few little things that we've done with table topics before I go into the grammarian role. Table topics, of course, has so many different ways to be creative. One thing that I've done in my home club, or we had somebody who used to have a farm, and he would bring in farm implements in a paper bag. Like each one would be in a paper bag, like small things, and they would be taped shut. And so you, as the speaker, would come up and like touch the bag and decide which thing you wanted to talk about, and take it out, and then you had to tell what that thing did. And the thing with the farm implements is none of us knew what the heck these things were, and so Mary would call them lies. They're not lies. We're just making things up. But we would talk about what they were. And then he would, of course, say, no, this is what this thing is. We've also done that with kitchen utensils, all kinds of things, just things in paper bags. Another thing we've done is invite the respondents to respond, and the table topics master has to guess the question they were responding to. That one is cuckoo, and it can lead to some really fun things because, of course, not all of the respondents will speak on something related to the theme. And so it can be very hard to guess the question. A lot of times people can get pretty close. You can also do the table topics master asks each person, this would be in a virtual meeting, to say maybe their favorite hobby or their favorite vacation spot, and they would pose a question to, say, I would say, Linda, please explain to me in our meeting, who here their favorite vacation spot is Fresno. And then Linda has to guess, and she would just make up all the reasons why she thinks that Mary Berg's favorite spot to vacation is Fresno. And then Mary will confirm, no, no, that's not mine. And maybe Elaine would say, no, I love Fresno. So it's just a fun way to kind of tell lies about your fellow club members, as Mary would say. They're not lies. They're guesses. They're guesses. All right. Natalie says she likes doing Would You Rather when doing table topics. Yes, that is very, very fun. April says no one in the world likes going to Fresno. I actually like going to Fresno because the Fresno County Fair, I'm going to tell you, it's the best fair I've ever been to in California. It's a good one. So that's a compelling reason. I don't know if Fresno is my favorite place to go, but it's a place. All right. Let's see. Let's talk about the grammarian. So of course we have word of the day. We've heard phrase of the day. In one club that I'm in, I was grammarian one time and I decided that I was going to assign everybody that came to the meeting a word. Everybody had their own word and they had to use their word throughout the meeting. And it was up to the members to guess what that person's word was. It was such a good idea when I came up with it. And then I realized as I was going through it that it was kind of hard to come up with 20 words of the day. I'm glad I did it. And then we had to track who guessed correctly, but it was well worth it. And it was pretty funny to see how different people would incorporate these cuckoo words into their responses, into their speeches, table topics, what have you. So that's a fun one. The other thing is if you've been in a club meeting with me before as grammarian, sometimes I play a game called Who Said. So as grammarian, I am writing all of my fun phrases that I'm hearing throughout the meeting, and I will just spring on people and say, okay, who said no one in the world likes going to Fresno? And then everyone has to get, oh yeah, that was April. She said that. And April will confirm it was her. Or she might say, I didn't say that. And I'll say, no, it was actually your notes. He said it. So that's one thing. And what that is doing is, yes, me as grammarian, I am carefully listening to everybody speaking because I'm writing all the phrases down, but it's also encouraging all your members to be listening carefully, right? Everybody should be listening carefully. I liked some of these that came in from ChatGPT. Here's a great one. The grammarian can set a genre theme. So as far as grammarians go, you could say, today make your speaking poetic or journalistic or dramatic, and you're challenging speakers to match the style of the genre, which can be fun but also a skill booster. So you have to think about what that genre is and then be incorporating that into your grammarian report at the end and how people fulfilled that. You can also, as grammarian, share some fun language facts. So you can briefly introduce interesting grammar tips or quirks. You could talk about the rule of three, the impact of an active voice. You can talk about why the word so, you should not be using it because it diminishes your message. And then you would hope that Christine Brady would hear you and start thinking about other words to use instead of so. Can also display a few well-phrased sentences or impactful quotes from speakers on a board or on the screen, showcasing some of their language highlights that they've used. Oh, April is including some fun genre, journalist, sportscaster. Oh, a 1940s PI. That's a good one. Like some film noir, right? Yes, I like that. That can incorporate hats, actually. That I always like incorporating hats. And then, of course, you can have that Golden Grammar Award. So we had that Golden Speaker Award with the counter, Golden Grammar, and thinking about avoiding overused words. So bring some awareness on overused words or phrases, such as like, basically, those are things the counter is also tracking, but as grammarian, you can also talk about those. I also think that if you could find some of those phrases, you could use your notes' trick of putting them over some music and say, like, this is why we don't use those phrases, right? You could also have a challenge. So set a collective challenge for the next meeting, like minimizing those filler words or using more descriptive verbs, or maybe experimenting with humor, thinking about experimenting with different styles of speaking. And let's see, the last thing is to encourage some self-reflection, asking members to choose one language goal to work on for the next meeting. So maybe reducing crutch words or mastering pauses. Or one that we work on in another club is mastering the callback, where we think about things that other speakers in the meeting have said. And we, as maybe an evaluator or grammarian or counter, try to call back to that phrase so that we are highlighting some special moments in our own meeting. Let's see, Mary's saying at a theme meeting, she'd been to an auto show and she showed a picture of a new car brand. Then the word of the day was what? Is that supposed to be Chevrolet?
Chevrolet.
It's supposed to be Chevrolet, but you're
Got it.
supposed
Okay.
to use your imagination.
I did. I did. I just thought you were lying about the car brand.
But
That was
then
a callback.
the grammarian had to remember what the word of the day was and had to report what that word was. So it was a challenge for the grammarian. It was really
Yes,
a
yeah.
challenge. I've never done it since because it was scary to watch somebody be wrong.
I would say the biggest challenge I've ever had as grammarian was when I assigned everybody a word, their own word, because every time somebody spoke, I needed to be just zoomed in on them to see that they use their personal word. And so having that up on a screen and being able to have like an Excel spreadsheet and track it was really important on that one. So if you're going to use that suggestion, I say be ready. It's going to be a challenge, but it's worth it because everybody had a great time. Yeah. And then you have to remember in chat when you send them, they don't have the word ahead of time because you really have to wait till everyone shows up, right? Please, if you use that one, make sure that you send the words in private chat. You don't, Mary Berg, your word is common, and if everyone knows, well, there that goes. You have to find a new word for her.
And that was tough.
That was a good one though, right?
Yep. Tough.
Yeah. And, finally, if you have a fun theme, like if your theme was Oktoberfest, you could show up with your chicken hat on. Bonus points for doing the chicken dance. All right, Madam District Director, those are the ways to bring the fun back to Functionary.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so very much, Christine, and everyone for contributing, because we've all seen some fun things and it's a great place to put all of this here. A lot of new ideas for everyone. We want to create fun and club quality, and these were excellent ways to do that and gets everyone involved, and it's not left up to one person to engage and have a lot of fun. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. And I love your natural sense of humor that you brought to this presentation as well. I'm sad to say that this was our last formal presentation from our region advisor. So can we just give her a great big round of applause or jazz hands or whatever, just to acknowledge how fabulous she is. Yes, we could throw some hearts up there as well. Just our way of saying thank you so very much, Christine. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
And I think that we can take a lot of this to the bank as far as to our other clubs and our area directors, so we can start having a little more energy and fun in our meetings. And with that, I'm going to stop the recording and we can talk for a minute or so.